Congratulations. You are the Emperor of Rome. You command every legion. You own entire provinces. Your face is on every coin from Britain to the desert. You are, on paper, the single most powerful human being on the planet. And there is a very good chance you will be murdered by the people standing closest to you. Because here's the truth nobody tells you about the most powerful job in the ancient world. Of the roughly 70 men who ruled Rome as emperor over the centuries, the large majority did not die peacefully. They were stabbed, poisoned, strangled, beheaded, forced to kill themselves, or torn apart by their own bodyguards. The throne of Rome was not a reward. It was a death sentence with a delay. Let me show you exactly why it sucked to sit on that throne. There is a phrase Romans themselves used to describe this, and it says everything. The imperial power, they said, was a beautiful thing wrapped around a knife. Even emperors admitted it out loud. The Emperor Tiberius reportedly said that holding the throne was like holding a wolf by the ears. You cannot keep gripping it forever. Your arms will give out. But the second you let go, it tears your throat out. That was the job description in one sentence. There was no safe way to hold on and no safe way to release. And unlike a king in later ages, you had no clean rulebook for who inherited the throne. Rome never fully decided how an emperor should be chosen. Sometimes it passed to a son, sometimes to an adopted heir, sometimes to whoever the army shouted for, sometimes to whoever paid the guard the most. This vagueness was poison. Because if there is no clear law saying who rules next, then everyone with an army, a fortune, or a drop of imperial blood can make a case with a blade. The lack of a rule meant the rule became murder. Start with the people who are supposed to protect you, the Praetorian Guard. These are your personal bodyguards, the elite soldiers whose entire job is to keep you alive. Sounds reassuring. It is not. The Praetorian Guard killed more emperors than any foreign army ever did. They were the single most dangerous people in your life, and they slept down the hall. Think about the position you are in. The only armed men allowed near the emperor are the exact men most capable of killing him, and they know it. Over time, the guard figured out that they did not just protect the emperor. They chose the emperor. Kill one, install another. Collect the bonus the new one pays them for their loyalty. It became a business. It got so blatant that after they murdered one emperor, the Praetorians literally auctioned off the throne to the highest bidder. A rich man named Didius Julianus showed up, offered each guard a massive payment, and they made him emperor on the spot. He bought the Roman Empire like a piece of furniture. He lasted about 2 months before he was killed too. That is how much the throne was worth. You could buy it in an afternoon and lose it before summer. Now let us talk about your food. Every single meal you eat could be the one that kills you. Poison was the signature weapon of Roman politics, quiet, deniable, and devastatingly effective. You never truly knew if the wine in your cup or the mushrooms on your plate had been tampered with by someone who wanted your seat. So you hired a food taster, a slave who ate a portion of everything before you did. But even that was not safe. A clever poisoner could use a slow-acting poison, or poison only one side of a knife, or coat a single fig on the tree in your own garden. The Emperor Claudius was reportedly killed by a plate of poisoned mushrooms, his favorite food, served by people at his own table. The most powerful man in the world, taken out by dinner. You live every meal doing quiet math. Who prepared this? Who carried it? Who benefits if I die tonight? Imagine never once, for the rest of your life, being able to simply eat without calculating the odds of survival. And it is not just strangers, it is your family. This is the part that truly makes the job unbearable. The greatest threats to a Roman emperor were almost always his own relatives. Your wife, your mother, your sons, your stepsons, your cousins. All of them are potential rivals because being related to you is the single best claim to your throne. Look at the record. Nero had his own mother killed after she had schemed to put him in power in the first place. He then reportedly had his wife killed too. The Emperor Constantine executed his own son and had his wife killed. Family dinners in the imperial palace were not warm occasions. They were negotiations between people who each knew the other might be planning their death. Love was a luxury the throne could not afford. Your own mother might poison you to rule through your brother. Your wife might scheme to replace you with her son from a previous marriage. Your heir might get impatient waiting for you to die. The closer someone was to you by blood, the more reason they had to want you gone. You were surrounded by family and utterly alone. And the Senate? That is a whole separate knife aimed at your back. On paper, the Senate is a council of Rome's most distinguished men, there to advise you. In reality, it is 600 proud aristocrats, many from families older and grander than yours, who deeply resent bowing to a single ruler. Many of them dream of the old republic, when men like them ran Rome and no emperor stood above them. Every senator who smiles at you in public might be doing arithmetic in private. If they think you are weak, they conspire. If they think you are a tyrant, they conspire harder. And they can dress the murder up as saving Rome from a monster. Caesar's killers called themselves liberators. That is the trap. Rule too softly, and they see an opening. Rule too harshly, and they get a noble excuse. The Senate could turn your own cruelty into the justification for your assassination, and history would applaud them for it. Now the mob. Rome was a city of 1 million people, and a huge share of them were poor, idle, and packed together in a tinderbox of a city. To keep them from rioting, you had to feed them and entertain them. Bread and circuses. Free grain and free games. If the grain ships were late, if the harvest failed, if the price of bread spiked, the mob turned on you personally. Not on your ministers, on you. Emperors were pelted with garbage in the street. Crowds in the arena would chant demands at the emperor to his face, tens of thousands of voices at once, and if he refused them, the mood could turn deadly. You were a god to these people, right up until they were hungry, and then you were the man to blame. Managing the mood of 1 million volatile strangers was a daily part of the job, and getting it wrong could end you. Then there is the army. The legions on the frontier are the muscle that holds the empire together. But those legions are loyal to their generals and to their paychecks, not necessarily to you. A popular general on the Rhine or the Danube, with tens of thousands of loyal soldiers, was always a potential emperor in waiting. There was even a period so chaotic it is called the Year of the Four Emperors, when 4 different men held the throne in a single year, each one raised up by an army, and then destroyed by the next. General marches on Rome, kills the emperor, becomes emperor. Another general marches on Rome, kills him, repeat. The throne changed hands like a hot coal nobody could hold. So you have to keep the army happy, which means paying them enormous bonuses, which means raising taxes, which makes everyone else hate you, which creates more enemies. Every solution to one threat created another threat. The job was a machine that manufactured people who wanted you dead. Let us talk about the actual daily paranoia, because the psychological toll was its own kind of hell. You cannot trust your guards. You cannot trust your food. You cannot trust your wife, your mother, or your children. You cannot trust the Senate, full of proud men who resent taking orders from you. You cannot trust the mob. You cannot trust your generals. So who is left? Almost no one. Emperors grew suspicious to the point of madness, and often the paranoia was completely justified. The problem is that paranoia itself gets you killed. Execute people on suspicion, and you create the very conspiracy you feared, because now everyone around you knows they could be next, so they strike first. The Emperor Domitian became so afraid of assassination that he lined the walls of his palace walkway with polished stone so he could see anyone approaching behind him. He was still assassinated by members of his own court in his own bedroom. Imagine living like that. Every friendly face might be calculating your death. Every gift might be poisoned. Every quiet word between two courtiers might be a plot. Every night you go to sleep behind locked doors, wondering if this is the night. The power was real, but so was the terror, every single day, with no vacation from it. Ever. There is another detail that made the paranoia even worse. Omens and prophecy. Romans believed deeply in signs, and an emperor lived under constant prediction of his own death. Astrologers claimed they could read in the stars exactly when a ruler would fall, and word of such a prophecy spread fast. Now imagine the effect. If a respected astrologer whispers that the emperor will die within the year, ambitious men take it as a green light. The prophecy becomes a self-fulfilling weapon. Some emperors responded by banning astrologers or executing anyone who dared cast the imperial horoscope, because a prediction of your death was, in practice, an invitation to your murder. Emperors also watched for signs everywhere. A lightning strike on a statue, a comet in the sky, a strange birth, a bad dream. Any of these could be read as the gods withdrawing their favor. And once people believed the gods had abandoned you, your protection evaporated. Your power depended not just on soldiers and coins, but on the belief that heaven was on your side. The moment that belief cracked, the knives came out. And the deaths themselves were horrific. Let us actually look at how these all-powerful men ended. Julius Caesar, technically not an emperor, but the man who paved the way, was stabbed 23 times in the Senate by dozens of men he considered friends and colleagues. He fell at the foot of a statue, bleeding out on the floor of the institution he ruled. Caligula, infamous for his cruelty and madness, was cut down by his own Praetorian guard in a palace corridor. They stabbed him dozens of times. Then they hunted down his wife and killed her, and killed his baby daughter too, to erase the bloodline. Nero, abandoned by everyone, was declared a public enemy by the Senate and fled the city. Cornered, with soldiers coming to arrest him for execution, he forced himself to commit suicide, reportedly weeping about what an artist the world was losing. Commodus, who liked to dress as a gladiator and fight in the arena, was strangled to death in his bath by a wrestler hired by his own inner circle, after a poisoning attempt failed to finish him. Caracalla was stabbed to death by one of his own soldiers while he stopped to relieve himself at the side of the road. The master of the Roman world, killed in the dirt with his tunic up. Even the good emperors, the wise ones history actually praises, could not escape the shadow. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, spent much of his reign not lounging in luxury, but freezing in military camps on the northern frontier, fighting war after war, burying friends, and writing private notes to himself, just to stay sane. Those notes survive today, and they are full of a tired man, reminding himself that everything passes, that power is fleeting, that death comes for emperors exactly as it comes for beggars. The single most powerful man alive spent his nights writing reminders that his power meant nothing. That is not the diary of a man enjoying the best job on earth. And after he finally died, worn out by war and disease, the throne passed to his son Commodus, who threw it all away in cruelty and madness and got himself strangled in his bath. So even a lifetime of doing the job well bought you nothing lasting. You could be the wisest ruler Rome ever had and still hand the world to a son who would burn your legacy and die in a bathtub. The throne did not reward virtue. It devoured everyone equally. The pattern is relentless. The higher you sat, the harder and bloodier the fall. There was almost no such thing as retiring as emperor. You held the throne until something, or more likely someone, pried you off it. Consider one more thing almost no one thinks about. You could never truly quit. In a normal terrible job, you resign and walk away. An emperor could not. Stepping down was almost unheard of, and for a brutal reason. A former emperor is the most dangerous person imaginable. A man who knows the palace, has loyal contacts, and carries a claim to the throne. No successor could ever feel safe while you breathed. So a retired emperor was a loose end that usually got tied off with a blade. There was, in practice, no exit. You ruled until you were killed, and the only way out of the fear was the thing you feared most. One emperor, Diocletian, actually managed the near impossible. He voluntarily abdicated, walked away, and retired to a palace to grow vegetables. When later rulers begged him to come back and fix the empire's chaos, he refused, saying that if they could see the cabbages he had grown with his own hands, they would never ask him to trade that piece for power again. He is remembered as an exception precisely because he did what almost no other emperor could do. He got off the throne alive and stayed off it. Almost everyone else in that seat learned the hard way that the only retirement plan the job offered was death. So why did anyone want the job? Because the power, while it lasted, was intoxicating beyond anything a normal mind can grasp. You could build a palace across an entire hillside. You could order a city built and named after yourself. You could raise a man from a slave to a governor with a word, or erase a senator's entire family on a whim. You were worshipped as a living god. Temples were built to you. People prayed to your image. And think about who you could actually talk to. A normal person has friends, people who like them for who they are. An emperor has none of that. Not really. Everyone who approaches you wants something, a favor, a title, a contract, a pardon, a piece of your power. Every compliment might be flattery with a motive. Every advisor might be steering you for their own gain. You can never know if a single person in your life values you as a man rather than as a source of power, because the power distorts everything and everyone around it. So the emperor, surrounded by thousands of courtiers, servants, soldiers, and admirers, was one of the loneliest human beings who ever lived. He could summon anyone in the world to his side and could not trust a single one of them completely. He had a palace full of people and not one honest friend guaranteed among them. All the wealth of the ancient world bought him company, but it could never buy him a single relationship free of calculation. That is the hidden tax of absolute power. It isolates you completely, right up until the moment someone close enough to touch you decides it is time. And that is the cruel joke at the center of it all. The Roman emperor had everything a human being could possibly want: wealth beyond counting, power over millions, the status of a god on earth. And he could not enjoy a single quiet meal, sleep a single night without fear, or trust a single person who loved him. He owned the world and could not own a moment of peace. Down in the streets of Rome, a beggar sleeping under an archway had nothing: no money, no power, no name that would survive him. But he could eat a crust of bread without wondering if it would kill him. He could fall asleep without locking a door. He could trust his own wife and children. In the one currency that the emperor could never buy, that beggar was richer than the master of the world. So the next time you imagine what it would be like to have absolute power, to rule an empire, to be worshipped as a god, remember the men who actually got there. Most of them ended up stabbed, strangled, or poisoned by the people they trusted most. The throne of Rome was the highest seat on earth. It was also the most dangerous chair ever built. And almost no one who sat in it climbed back off alive.